February 11, 1944, 14:37 hours, Abbeville Drucot Airfield, northern France. A cold wind whips across the concrete as Hauptmann Heinz Knock swings down from the wing root of his Bf-19G6. His leather flying jacket is still steaming from the climb-out. He pulls off his gloves, slaps them against his thigh, and starts laughing. Not a polite chuckle. A full-throated, head-back, tear-wiping laugh that makes the ground crew stop in their tracks. Because there, circling the field at 3,000 feet like some bloated albatross, is the new American fighter the propaganda boys have been mocking for weeks, the Republic P-47 Thunderbolt. 42 feet of wing, 7 tons of airplane, 8 50 caliber machine guns sticking out of the leading edge like a hedgehog on steroids. From the ground it looks slow, clumsy, absurd. Knock cups his hands and shouts up to his swarm-mates, still taxiing in. "Look at it! They've strapped a railway engine to a barn door!" More laughter. Even the normally stone-faced Major Gunther Rau cracks a grin. Oberst Adolf Galland, visiting from JV-26, leans against the wing of his personal 109 and lights a cigar. He watches the Thunderbolt wallow through a lazy turn, sunlight flashing off its bare metal belly, and exhales a perfect smoke ring. "A fat American truck with wings," he says, voice dripping with aristocratic contempt. "Let them come. We will eat them alive." You can almost taste the confidence in the freezing air. These are the men who tore the RAF to pieces in 1940, who ran rings around the Spitfire 5, who still believe the 109 is the finest fighter aircraft on Earth. The Thunderbolt? A joke. A flying tank that can barely turn, can't climb, can't fight. A delivery truck for targets. Galland flicks ash from his cigar and turns to his adjutant. "Tell the boys the next Amos we meet will be these. Easy kills, extra cognac for the first man to flame one." The laughter rolls again, louder this time, carried on the wind across the flat Pas-de-Calais fields toward England. They have no idea that 70 miles away across the channel, a quiet, pipe-smoking lieutenant colonel named Hub Zemke is already writing a very different story in the margins of his tactical notebook. And somewhere above the clouds, 8 brand-new Thunderbolts of the 56th Fighter Group are throttling up, superchargers howling like banshees, climbing toward a rendezvous that will make the laughter die in German throats forever. But on this February afternoon, the mockery still rings loud and certain. They think they're the hunters. They're wrong. March 4th, 1944, Debden Airfield, Essex, 06:15 hours. The fog clings to the grass like wet wool. Inside the 56th Fighter Group's briefing hut, Colonel Hub Zemke stands under a single bare bulb, pipe clenched between his teeth, pointing at a blackboard scrawled with arrows and altitude blocks. He doesn't shout. He never does. His voice is low, almost gentle, the way a surgeon talks right before he cuts. "Gentlemen, the 109s and 190s will try to bounce us from above. That's what they've always done. Today, we let them." A ripple of surprise. Captain Walker, Bud Mahurin leans forward, elbows on knees. Zemke taps the board. "We're heavier, faster in a dive, and we've got altitude superchargers they've never seen. So we play possum. We fly straight and level at 24,000 feet, like good little targets, until they commit. Then we roll, push the nose down, and disappear. Straight down. Full throttle. They can't follow. Physics won't let them." He pauses, lets the silence sink in. "Once we've got 6,000 feet on them and 500 knots on the clock, we pull out, light the blower, and come back up their tails before they know what happened. Questions?" There are none. Outside the Thunderbolts are already turning, massive 4-bladed props slicing the fog into ribbons. Lieutenant Robert S. Johnson, 22 years old, 6 kills already, climbs the wing of his P-47D named Lucky. He slaps the fuselage the way a cowboy pats a horse. The ground crew have chalked a new nickname under the cockpit in fresh white letters: All Hell. Engines cough, catch, then roar. 48 cylinders the size of paint buckets. Pratt & Whitney thunder that rattles teeth. One by one the jugs lumber into the sky, undercarriage still dripping mist, climbing northwest toward the Dutch coast. Across the water, yellow-nosed Bf-109s of JG-26 are already scrambling from Lille-Vendeville. Their pilots are laughing again, trading jokes over the RT about the fat pigs they're going to butcher today. At 24,000 feet, the two formations spot each other almost simultaneously. German radio explodes with excitement. Achtung! Thunderbolts, dead ahead, flying straight. Indians, they are flying straight like transports. In the lead Thunderbolt, Zemke keys his mic, voice calm as Sunday morning. Wolfpack, this is Red Leader. Hold course, let them close, on my word. Now. 48 Thunderbolts roll inverted in perfect unison. 48 noses drop toward the earth. The sky tears open. You've never heard a sound like it. 2 tons of turbo supercharger screaming, 2,800 horsepower unleashed, airframe shaking so hard the wings flex like bowstrings. The ASI needle slams past 450, 480, 500 miles per hour. The world outside the canopy turns into a white blur. Behind them, the 109s dive too, confident, eager. But the Messerschmitt's critical Mach number is lower. Compressibility hits them like a brick wall. Controls freeze. One 109, piloted by Lieutenant Gerhard Barkhorn, starts an uncontrollable flick roll at 480 fighters. He fights the stick, sweating ice, praying. The Thunderbolts are already gone, vanished into the deck below, leaving only condensing shock cones hanging in the air like mocking ghosts. 30 seconds later, the jugs are pulling out at 10,000 feet, G-forces crushing pilots into their seats, vision graying at the edges. Then the GE superchargers kick into high blower and the big radials snarl back to life. Zemke's voice again, almost amused. Wolfpack, reverse course, climb, tally-ho. The hunters have become the hunted, and the Germans still don't know the rules have changed. But one man is about to find out the hard way. April 8, 1944, 27,000 feet above the Zuider Zee, Northern Holland, 13:22 hours. The German formation is still trying to reform after the Thunderbolts vanished beneath them like stones dropped down a well. In the cockpit of his Bf-109 G6, Oberleutnant Heinz Knoke, the same man who laughed loudest at Abbeville, is furious. He has been bounced, outdived, and humiliated by the fat trucks. His swarm is scattered, fuel is burning, and the Ami bastards are nowhere to be seen. Then his gunner calls, voice cracking. "Banditen, steil von unten, 6 o'clock high?" Knoke snaps his head around so hard his neck cracks. They're coming back. 48 silver Thunderbolts, sunlight flashing off their bellies, climbing at an angle that should be impossible for anything that heavy. The big paddle-bladed props bite the air like buzz saws. The distance closes at a terrifying rate. Knoke screams the brake. Too late. The first burst comes from Captain Walker Bud Mahurin. 8 Browning .50s, spit 800 rounds per minute each. A solid wall of lead and tracer. The Messerschmitt directly ahead of Knoke simply disintegrates. Wing root hit, fuel tanks ignite, the 109 flips onto its back and falls away trailing a comet tail of burning petrol. Another 109 tries to roll away. Lieutenant Robert S. Johnson is already there. Johnson's Lucky slides in at 400 knots, guns hammering. The German pilot never even sees him. The 109's canopy explodes outward, the pilot tumbling out like a rag doll, no parachute. Knoke yanks his stick into his stomach, trying to dive again. He remembers the Thunderbolt can't turn. He's wrong. The P-47's huge wing may look clumsy, but at 400 mph it can outturn anything the Luftwaffe owns. Lieutenant Don Smith rolls in behind Knoke, dead, 6 o'clock, 300 yards. Smith's thumb presses the trigger. The Thunderbolt shudders with recoil. Noakes 109 takes hits along the fuselage, glycol streaming, engine coughing black smoke. He jettisons the canopy, fights the slipstream, and finally falls clear as his fighter spirals down into the cold gray water below. In 90 seconds, the entire German swarm is gone. 4 shot down, 2 force-landed, the rest scattered and running for home with dry mouths and shaking hands. On the American side, not a single Thunderbolt is even scratched. Hub Zemke's calm voice breaks the stunned silence on the RT. "Wolfpack, reform on me. Good boys. Let's go find the bombers and bring them home." Far below, a German controller at Leeuwarden Airfield stares at his radar screen in disbelief. 48 blips have just climbed straight through an entire staffel of 109s as if they weren't there. He reaches for the telephone to Berlin with trembling fingers. Back at Debden that evening, the scoreboard in the 56th Spar gets 4 fresh swastikas painted on it. The ground crews chalk new names on the Thunderbolt noses. Hairless Joe, Misbehave, Big-Ass Bird 2. The pilots drink beer and don't say much. They don't need to. Across the channel, Adolf Galland sits alone in his office at JV-26 headquarters. The laughter from February is a distant memory. On his desk lies the combat report from today's massacre. He reads the final line 3 times. Enemy fighters identified as P-47. Tactics unknown. Speed and dive exceeds 800 km/h. Impossible to engage. Galland pours himself a large cognac, stares out at the darkening runway, and for the first time in the war, whispers a single word under his breath. Scheisse. The Thunderbolt is no longer a joke. It is the hammer that is about to smash the Luftwaffe into scrap metal, one terrified ace at a time. And the hammer is only just beginning to fall. May 12, 1944. Reichsmarshal Hermann Göring's private office, Karinhall Hunting Lodge, Schorfheide Forest. The room smells of leather, cigar smoke, and fear. Adolf Galland stands at attention in full-dress uniform, Knight's Cross at his throat, while Göring paces in a silk dressing gown the color of fresh cream. On the massive oak desk between them sits a thick folder stamped Verlustmeldungen, loss reports. Göring slams it open with a meaty fist. "Explain this," he bellows, jowls trembling. 123 fighters in April alone, 64 in the first 10 days of May, all to these damned Thunderbolts. My best men, Egon Mayer, gone. Walter Osaw, gone. Barkhorn barely alive after bailing out at 600 kilometers an hour. Galland keeps his voice level, but his knuckles are white behind his back. The P-47 has changed the geometry of the sky, Herr Reichsmarschall. They refuse to fight on our terms. They dive through us, accelerate to speeds our aircraft cannot survive, then climb back with energy we cannot match. Our pilots are being slaughtered by tactics we do not yet understand. Göring's face turns purple. Then change the tactics. Order frontal attacks. Ram them if you have to. Galland meets his eyes for the first time. With respect, sir, ramming a 7-ton Thunderbolt at 500 miles an hour is suicide. The American pilot simply lowers his wing, lets the German smash into empty air, and shoots him as he falls past. Silence. Somewhere outside, peacocks scream in the gardens. Göring sinks into his chair like a deflating balloon. "Leave me," he whispers. Galland salutes and walks out. In the corridor he passes a young lieutenant, face pale, eyes hollow, fresh from the Russian front. The boy snaps a perfect salute. Galland barely notices. He is thinking about the new orders he will issue tonight to every Jagdgeschwader still flying over the Reich. Disengage the Thunderbolts whenever possible. Climb above 30,000 feet and stay there. If the jugs appear, run. Run! The word tastes like acid in his mouth. 300 miles west, at Debden, Hub Zemke is pinning a new map to the wall of the ops hut. Red lines now stretch from the Dutch coast all the way to Berlin and back. The 56th Fighter Group, Zemke's Wolfpack, has just been given a new mission: escort the heavies all the way to the target and then go hunting. Free hunting. No more leash. Zemke turns to his pilots, pipe glowing in the half-light. From now on, boys, the bombers are just the bait. We're not here to defend anymore. We're here to exterminate. A low growl of approval ripples through the room. Robert Johnson raises a glass of Coca-Cola. He still doesn't drink, and grins. Then let's go finish what we started. In the arming huts, armorers are loading belts of armor-piercing incendiary rounds, specially mixed for the Thunderbolt's 8 guns. In the hangars, crew chiefs top off the turbo superchargers with 150-octane fuel and hang 150-gallon drop tanks. Under each wing, range enough to reach Berlin, fight for 20 minutes, and fly home. The Jugs are no longer escort fighters. They are long-range predators, and the sky over Germany is about to become their killing ground. On flight lines from Lille to Vienna, German pilots read the new standing order with shaking hands. Bei Sichtung von P-47 sofort abdrehen und Höhe gewinnen. Kampf nur bei günstigster Lage. Translation: on sighting P-47, break off immediately and climb. Engage only under most favorable conditions. For the first time since 1939, the hunters have become the prey. And every takeoff now carries the same whispered prayer. Please God, not the Thunderbolts today. But God, it seems, has started rooting for the big, ugly Jug. And the final slaughter is only weeks away. D-Day plus 12 hours. Somewhere over the Normandy beachhead, 0817, June 7th, 1944. The sky is a madhouse of contrails, flak bursts, and burning aircraft. But something is wrong. Terribly wrong for the Germans. Oberst Josef Pips Priller, commander of JG-26, the famous Abbeville boys, climbs through the haze with his wingman, Heinz Wodarczyk. Just 2 lone FW-109s against the greatest air armada in history. Priller had screamed at his men that morning, anyone who refused to fly would be shot. Not a single pilot volunteered. They had seen what the Thunderbolts do. Now Priller sees them. Hundreds of them. P-47s of the 56th, the 78th, the 353rd, the 4th Fighter Groups, weaving above the beaches like sharks. Some still have black and white invasion stripes fresh on their wings. Others have already dropped their tanks and are prowling at low level, strafing anything that moves with German crosses. Priller dives anyway, guns the 2 190s straight down Omaha Beach in a suicidal pass, cannons blazing, then pulls up into a sky filled with Thunderbolts. He fully expects to die. He doesn't. Every Jug ignores him. They have bigger prey. Far to the east, the real killing is already happening. In the first week after D-Day, the Thunderbolt groups are unleashed completely. Zemke's Wolfpack alone claims 104 victories in 7 days. Robert Johnson bags 11 in a single week, sometimes 2 and 3 in one mission. Francis Gabreski, the quiet Polish-American from the 56th, shoots down 28 German aircraft in the 6 months of 1944, most of them in the Jug. German pilots begin to refuse sorties. Entire Staffeln sit on the ground with mysterious engine trouble. Veterans with 60, 80, 100 kills suddenly develop stomach cramps, ear infections, anything to stay alive. At airfields around Paris, pilots watch the western horizon every dawn, waiting for the telltale glint of silver wings and the distant rumble that sounds like an approaching freight train. They call it Donnerkeil, the Thunderbolt Wedge. When it appears, radios fall silent. Engines are shut down. Men run for the trees. On June 21, 1944, the 56th Fighter Group escorts a shuttle mission all the way to Russia. On the way in, they shred an entire group of brand-new Me-410 Hornets over Magdeburg. On the way home, they do it again over Berlin. Not one Thunderbolt is lost. That same week, Adolf Galland submits a desperate report titled The Decline of the Day Fighter Force. He writes, "The P-47 has achieved absolute air supremacy over the Reich. Our young pilots no longer believe they can survive a single sortie against them. Morale is collapsing faster than our fuel reserves. Goering reads it, screams that Galland is a defeatist, then quietly cancels his own flight schedule. The fat man with the medals hasn't flown a combat sortie in years, but now even he is afraid of the sky. By August 1944, the Luftwaffe Day fighter arm is a ghost. The once mighty Jagdwaffe that ruled Europe from 1939 to 1943 has been reduced to frightened boys in borrowed aircraft, praying they never hear the words, "Achtung, Thunderbolt's oben!" And somewhere over a burning Reich, Hub Zemke looks down from 30,000 feet, knocks the ash from his pipe, and allows himself the smallest of smiles. The fat American truck with wings has just driven the final nail into the coffin of the Luftwaffe, and the war in the air, for all intents and purposes, is over.